everyone, welcome back to the Haken channel. So today we're going to be doing applications of simultaneous equations. So hopefully this helps. Remember that you can pause at any time to take notes or copy the learning intention and success criteria. You're more than welcome to go back to the video. Okay, so let's get started. So today's learning intention is to understand how to write simultaneous equations when presented with a worded problem. So you've obviously had practice by now watching this video with the elimination and substitution method, but today we're going to see how you can create your own simultaneous equations rather than just be given one. So the success criteria for today is that you can form a pair of equations from a worded problem, pair meaning two, okay? You can identify which technique is best to apply to solve the simultaneous equation, so that could be elimination or substitution, which you have or should already have had some experience doing. So the last success criteria I would really like you to do is to be able to identify the correct variables to write two equations. Okay, the correct variables. So normally, for example, like if I was to write cost, I might use C. Okay, just be a bit smart with how you use your variables, because sometimes, if I was to put cost as X, sometimes you might get confused, or even just a random letter just because you feel like it. Okay, so like if I did like M, for example, that's really, really random. Okay, so the questions that you really need to be asking. Now I would take a pause and just perhaps copy this down. So you need to be figuring out what two variables should you be defining. So what are you trying to, what is the question asking? Is it cats or dogs? Is it, is it girls or boys? Is it high school or primary school kids? What two equations can you write, with your variables? So you have to do these in, I would say, order. And we're going to go through questions that run through each step. So which method are you going to be using for the equations? It doesn't matter, because eventually you'll find the answer. And you'll still have to double check. So what is the solution to the simultaneous equations, and what are you trying to find? That's really like the important thing. Like, what is the question asking you? Yep. And how would you answer the question in words? Remembering, worded problems require worded answers. So these steps, all right, you need to define two variables by writing down what they represent. So like I said, C equals cost, or X equals the number of people. That's an example. So you write a pair of simultaneous equations from the given equation using your two variables that you have chosen to give. So variables C and X would be a variable, okay? So you solve the equations simultaneously using substitution or elimination. In other words, you just need to use substitution or elimination to solve the equation. Check the solution by substituting into the original equations, or just one, and express your answer in words. And we're going to go through this step by step. So we're going to do an example real quick together as a group. So Wally bought 3 identical hats and 4 identical scarves for $70. From the same store on another day, he bought 5 hats and 2 scarves for $64.30. How much does each hat and each scarf cost? So I'm going to do these ones. They're all going to be in red in my questions. So number 1. Define two variables by writing down what they represent. So I'm going to do X as hats and Y as scarves, all right? And I'm actually going to do a different color so that we can do black. So write a pair of simultaneous equations from the given information using your two variables. So I've just highlighted, like in blue, my equation for blue and my equation for purple. So he bought 3 hats, so X is hat, so 3 hats, plus 4 scarves, so scarves Y, 4Y, equals 70. Do we see that? This is 3X, this is 4Y, and that was where my 70 came from. Then what we did was he went on another day to buy 5 hats, 2 scarves, okay, and that gave him $64.30. So that's where my purple equation came from. 5X plus 2Y equals $64.30. Okay, so I've just copied it here and I've copied the question. So you solve the equations simultaneously using substitution or elimination. So here I've got the equation. Now I'm going to multiply purple by 2 so that my scarves are the same. So I'm going to use the elimination method for this, because I'm actually really comfortable with using the elimination method. So the question is, now that I multiply it by 2, what does it give me? So 5x times 2 is 10x, 2y times 2 is 4y, and 64.30 is 128.6, which I've calculated. Okay, so now you're calculating hats, because what I've done is I'm going to call this equation 1, blue, and I'm going to call purple equation 2. So I'm subtracting them. So 4y minus 4y is 0. So you want to cancel out 1 so that you're only focused on one of the letters. It doesn't matter which one you cancel, okay? But since I times this one by 2, I'm obviously focused on scarves, y. Okay, if I wanted to multiply these two to get rid of them, I might have to times this one by 5, this whole row, and times this one by 3, so that they both equal 15 and I can subtract them. But I've just done 4 because 4 is easier. Okay, so now that I've subtracted them, so 3x minus 10x, so that would give me negative 7x, and that's how I got that. So 4y minus 4y, because it's plus, so this is actually 4y minus 4y. That's what it's saying, and that equals 0. So I've done here 7 minus, this one here was 7 minus 128.6, and that gave me negative 58.6. So the question is, how did I get rid of the negative? Well, I just simply divided it by negative 1, and that's what we do. We divide it by negative 1. Oh, I'll use a darker color for that. So we got to divide it by negative 1, both sides, because we want to get rid of negative 1. Okay, so to get rid of negative 1, cancels out the negatives on both sides. So now 7x equals 58.6, and I've just used a calculator to solve what that is. So how do I get rid of 7? Get rid of 7 by dividing it by both sides, and I've got that on the decimal, on the calculator, sorry. Now I've just rounded it to 2 decimal places. Normally speaking, questions really like 2 decimal places, which is why I've done so. So after you've got your x equals 840, you're calculating hats. So x hat equals 840. So you need to substitute x equals 840 into any of the equations. Now I've just picked blue just because I just felt like it. You could do it in the purple equation too, that's fine. You're going to get the same number regardless, because that's the idea of simultaneous equations. So now I've put in 3 times 840, because remember the normal equation was 3x plus 4y equals 70. As you can see up the top, you can see it here. That's the equation that I'm substituting it. That's what I got on my calculator, 25.11, etc. Now what you need to do is I've rounded it to 2 decimal places and I've carried it across. So it's now 70 minus 25.41, and I'm just going to erase that so it's just clearer for you. Now, the reason why it's minus is because 25 actually has an imaginary symbol, which is plus. So over the equal sign would make it a minus because you're turning it to the opposite. So 4y equals that answer, because that's 70 minus 25.11 gives me that answer on the decimal, on the calculator. So now, how do I get rid of 4? Well, I divide both sides by 4 to get rid of 4. And that will give me this one. And I round it to 2 decimal places, which is 11.22. Now, in Australia, we don't really have 2 cents. So we actually round it down. Alright? So we round it to the closest, cent. So, if I was to round 2 is do nothing, so actually we have 11.20. You need to round it down like that, okay, because we don't have 22 cents. So I've just written here, therefore hats are $8.40 each and scarves are $11.20, but we actually need to do a few more things to make sure our answer is correct. So we have to check the solution by substituting into the original equations. So we know that x equals 840 and y equals 1120. Okay, so we can put both of the values, x and y, into either or all those equations. I've just picked equation 1, which is blue. You could do equation 2 if you felt like it, but I just decided to do 1 purely because decimals really not my thing, and I can multiply real quick up here. So 3 times 840, because 840 is x, and 4 times 1120 because y is 1120 equals 70. Now if we solve that on the calculator, it will give us 25.2 plus 44.80, which equals 70. So they actually add up to give me 70. So that's actually correct, because if I really did buy 3 hats for that price, and I really did buy 4 scarves at that price, it does give me 70, and that matches up to the question where Wally bought 3 hats and scarves for $70. It matches up. So therefore we know the values are correct. So the last thing we need to do is we need to make sure we have a worded sentence. So we could write therefore, okay, instead of that we could just do 3 dots. Therefore, hats are $840 each and scarves are $11.20. And then that would give you your full mark to the whole question. Now, most of the questions I would say is predominantly practice, because you need to practice, giving the questions a variable. You need to practice rearranging them, substituting. I can't really just show you a video and it'll magically give you, 100% on your next test. You actually need to put in the effort. And I really do appreciate everyone who has been completing their homework up to date. So apart from that, this is the end of the video, and just stay tuned for the next few videos to come, and remember to ask your teacher questions, and here's a meme for you. Okay, have a good day.